Hello, everyone. My name is Andrea Rodriguez,
And I'm Tiffani Carrillo.
and we will be presenting our lesson that is named From Birth to Death.
So the lesson information, the length of the lesson would be around 90 minutes. The materials and resources would be an organism book, poster paper, markers, organism videos, websites, songs, and books that they would use as resources. And the language of instruction would be English. The main overview is that students would research the life cycle of an organism and create a graphic organizer, speech script, and present a poster on it.
The standards and objectives for this lesson are the ones that follow. Our content standard is 3-LS1-1, and it is to develop models to describe that organisms have unique and diverse life cycles, but all have in common birth, growth, reproduction, and death. And the language standard for ELD is to explain. Our content objective is that I will be able to create a poster on the life cycle, which is the birth, growth, reproduction, and death of the organism I choose. And their language objective is I will be able to use scientific vocabulary to verbally describe the life cycle, birth, growth, reproduction, and death of the organism I choose.
For the target WIDA levels, the first one we chose was emerging. So the scaffolds we would use would be books, videos, websites, or diagrams that are in the student's native language. It would be helping with any vocabulary translations that they need, and then providing them sentence frames to complete their presentation script. This way they feel better when they actually get to presenting, especially in a new language like English. And then they would also have a graphic organizer for students to be able to organize their thoughts as they're researching their organism. And then some of the sentence frames we would use would be, for example, it would be the organism I choose is blank. This life cycle shows that a blank is born by. And then all those blanks would kind of be like their key vocabulary words. That way they would know what to present when moving forward. Another one would be when a blank is ready to reproduce, it blank.
And then for our other level, we chose level 3, which is expanding. The scaffold techniques we would use there would be sentence starters to guide their thinking and research towards meeting the lesson requirements, and a graphic organizer for the students to organize their thoughts and research. Some sentence starters that we came up with were I chose this organism because as it grows, it starts to, after it grows up, it lives for about, or one interesting thing about the organism I chose is this way the students are able to use their own words and own critical thinking to apply their research into these sentence starters, and they're able to use more of the vocabulary in English for the required presentation they have at the end.
So then building background and comprehensible input. For the background knowledge, we had said that students would probably already have knowledge in planting seeds, or if they have a garden at home, they've already planted a seed and seen how a plant kind of grows and reproduces. They also might have animals at home, so they might have seen that animal grow up and seen that process, or maybe they have an animal at home that's given birth, so they've seen that aspect of it. And also in like first grade and second grade, they're actually taught like information about other organisms, so they'll have that background knowledge from when they learned that in previous lessons. For the comprehensible input, we had said that we would have multiple forms of media, like we had said, it would be books, videos, websites, and diagrams. We would also provide them with an example of a finished poster so that they could use it as a reference when they're creating their own. Then we would have graphic organizers, sentence frames, and sentence starters for any of the students that needed it.
The strategies and scaffolds that we will be using before the lesson would be that we will activate previous knowledge with the class discussion on the life cycles of organisms, and we will have students discuss any time they have seen an organism grow. For example, a butterfly or maybe a pet that they have at home. And then during the lesson, we will have students create their own poster on the life cycle of an organism of their choosing. This way, they're engaged in the lesson because they chose the organism they wanted to present on. And after the lesson, students will present to the whole class their life cycle poster.
And then for our practice and application, we would have different activities. So the first one would be an organism read aloud, which is where the students would just be listening and this supports read levels by using visuals as well as like voice inflection when doing the read aloud. The other one is Organism Graphic Organizer. So this helps them in reading and writing, and the graphic organizer will already be labeled for them, so it'll be a little bit easier. And then in Organism, the presentation script will also help with reading and writing. And that's when they'll be able to use like their sentence starters, their sentence frames, or any of the word banks with like all the vocabulary words they need. Then we would have the actual poster creation, which would also be reading and writing as they're making it. And this includes visuals, the vocabulary that they already had from their sentence frames and starters. And then lastly, it would be the actual presentation on the poster, which would use reading, speaking, and listening. And their support would be already having the script done with the sentence frames and the sentence starters.
The lesson delivery we will do is that we will ensure that students are engaged and the activities are connected to objectives by being allowed to choose their own organism to do research on, which will have our students become more engaged in the lesson. And the multiple forms of media we will offer, they will create an engaging and fun way to conduct research and find information for our students.
So then for the review and assessment, for the formative assessment, it would be the actual process of researching the organism and filling out the graphic organizer with all their information. For the summative assessment, it would be writing their script, creating the poster, and presenting them to the class. And then feedback and reflection would be we would give the students oral feedback and as well as provide them with a rubric and seeing how well they use the rubric as well as seeing if they integrated the vocabulary they had written about in their actual presentation.
And then here we included our rubric that we will use when grading our students in both levels that we focused on. We labeled it the organism life cycle rubric. This way it's specific and we know exactly what we're trying to grade. We focus on topic understanding, use of the information, language use, and participation in presentation. This way students are able to get graded on every single step that they do through the lesson, not just one part of it. And
And that's
that's it from me.
everything.
Thank you.